The reason I put that in is because on the subject of double arrows and the new railway, let's get into the meat of the meal. It's Ros fixing Britain's railways, or rather just laughing at them. So something not to necessarily laugh at is that we had Heidi Alexander, Secretary of State for Transport, is the first, in 2026, the first woman to deliver the George Bradshaw address.
Wow.
Oof. Britain, what a place we are. Now, that speech was mostly not very interesting at all, and it promised and committed to absolutely nothing. And therefore, you can mostly ignore it. I think what's more worrying is the things that are actually happening about how our railway is kind of being wiggled around with in advance of the rise of the new railway organisation, whatever that ends up being. For example, the new railways bill, two very obvious things that should have been included in the bill, because there is a target for freight within the bill, is a passenger target. If you've got a freight target, you should also have a passenger target. That was not proposed in the original. The amendment has been rejected. So the government has said, no, we don't want a target for growing passenger numbers. What? I mean, you could just write a target for growing passenger numbers, right? You can do that. We have the technology. You're doing it for freight. You could do it for passengers. Always makes me wonder, well, why is someone not wanting that written down, I wonder? I mean, it's Treasury because they'd have to commit to stuff, but also other people perhaps as well.
They went on a Voyager and they're like, there's too many people on there. We gotta reduce the amount of people riding trains, folks.
I mean, you joke, but that is basically the primary mode of crowding management on the railways right now, is how do we get fewer people traveling by train, which is frightening. Some parts of the railway, I want to get Alex Hornby from Northern on, because Northern, weirdly, the operator for kind of non-long distance express services in the north of England, Britain's stupid, it does actually have a passenger growth target. And I want to talk to Alex about how that's come about. So that's a future episode. I'm actually really keen to do that one. So that will be interesting. But a government target? No. And of course, electrification. I made the joke of inserting the hydrogen and battery pictures in the bonus episode about the GG1. Everyone should go and watch that, by the way. Subscribe to the W2IP Patreon. It's a good episode. Big Liz,
give me $2.
Give Roz $2. Electrification target, another straightforward thing that you could just say we're going to achieve this level of electrification. Also a rejected amendment. What's interesting is the government, having cancelled electrification that it had committed to 2 years ago, has now meant that they're going, well, it's fine because you can swap electrification with battery trains, except that East Midlands Railway have gone, no, we don't want to do that. We're just going to get more diesel trains. We're going to have more diesel units instead. So it turns out you do actually need electrification.
It's sometimes prudent to invest in technology that works.
Yes, it is. And it's not like, it's like this constant discussions of what if the technology changes? It's like, no, electrification has been the best way to move trains around for 130 years at this point. Like,
what if the technology changes? Well, it hasn't.
Yeah, it hasn't, and it's extremely unlikely to, because as long as we've had commercial electricity, that's been the best way to power trains. And while we still have trains and commercial electricity, it will still be the best way to power trains. Oh boy. Right, okay. Also a weird one. So Ross, if you want to understand how bizarre GB is, we've cancelled lots of electrification projects, but bizarrely this one has resurfaced, which is that there's some business case. Network Rail have been chucked about £1 million to develop a business case to electrify from the East Coast Main Line out to Middlesbrough. Kind of, it's not a full main line, like it's kind of like regional services run up there, but it would absolutely benefit from being electrified. You know, it's certainly a line that runs enough service to be electrified, like instantly obvious electrification. Again, it's like, well, why are we doing a business case? But anyway, but like, it's weird that this seems to be this backdoor that we're procuring some electrification business case. I don't understand. But what's frightening is this is going to be basically like the only electrification project if this ends up going ahead, which is really depressing.
Good Lord. It is kind of weird that you need a business case for something that should be, self-evidently obvious.
Yeah, exactly. Look, the way you do electrification, everyone watching, is you say, right, you pick a number, let's call it £1 billion. You say, we're going to spend £1 billion a year on electrification. And it doesn't matter, and it's on you, rail industry, to do as much electrification as you can for that money, but we're willing to spend £1 billion on electrification. And that's what government should be doing. Just saying, here's the annual number, it'll increase by inflation a year. It's in your interest, railway industry, to be doing as many single track kilometers as possible for that number. But that's what it should be. It should not be business case project by project basis, because that's how you do not make it cost efficient. It's quite something. Roz, we've talked about this before, but like the GB Railway is like one of the most intensively operated railway, even on rural lines. It's extremely intensively operated, right? We run a lot of trains. every single line is basically requires conventional electrification. Like, it's not like half the railway, like the 86% of unelectrified railway in GB is instantly should be conventional electrified. There's no like umming and ahhing about it. The remaining 15% are like, well, at some point wires are probably the right thing to do. But 86% of our unelectrified railway, including the one in this picture, need wires. I could kill again. Right.
Heritage Railways too.
Let's do some heritage railway electrification. Hell yes. Right. So a couple of weeks ago, was it last week or the week before, we had an episode about industry structure, right? About the structure of the GB rail industry, and it was the industry is baffling. One of the bits of the industry that is going to be even more baffling when the new structure of the industry comes out with GBR is the regulator, the railway regulator. A regulator that basically its only role was to kind of manage private operations and the relationship between them. You could argue it has some role in sort of managing passenger, central passenger services versus freight, or perhaps central passenger services versus devolved passenger services and open access. But like, those could just be incorporated into the organization. Like, you don't need a separate regulator for that. It's kind of like smoke and mirrors, because ultimately the ORR is an entirely captured regulator anyway. It does what government says it wants to. Classic example being, there was this really weird episode, Roz, where they like said, no, Avanti West Coast, you aren't going to be allowed to run this morning empty coaching stock service that happens to be run as a 7 a.m. Manchester to London service for various reasons. Yeah. And then the rail minister just intervened and said, no, yeah, you will. And the ORR said, oh, okay. It's like, well, what's the point in that organization then? Like, it doesn't need to continue to exist in the future. Like, just get rid of it.
You need to introduce efficiencies by adding more adversarial relationships.
Exactly.
If you have more adversarial relationships, people will get really mad at each other, and then everything works better.